putting together an updated video of the Moorish Idols. Just kind of show you that already they're pretty much eating any and everything. So started them obviously with the Spectrum Pellets, the Spectrum Plus A pellets. Let me turn my light on in here. I think you can probably see that there. Spectrum Pellets there. It's the Plus A's, the Thera Plus A. And let's see, from there, let's see, I think we went with an algae sheet, which they enjoyed, and of course, I've actually got some mysis here I'm going to put in there, and actually where you can see them eat the mysis as well. I'm going to put that in there. And they go for anything and everything so far that I've put in here, they've actually eaten and see. So, they definitely are hungry all the time. As fish are. So, but obviously the great thing, you can see them going for the mysis. They are ready to chow down, and so far these guys are looking pretty good. And obviously you can see that they're definitely eating, and they're eating anything that's food matter that's going into the tank. So they aren't picky. If it's food, they'll eat it, which is a good thing. See the Leniatus in there, Desargini there. See, get some pellets out of here. Some of the Spectrum Pellets. This is on to run once a day. Drop a few pellets in there, not a whole lot, but let's see, maybe see them float down and actually eat them as well. You see the pellets kind of went through to the back, so there's a couple right there falling. There he goes right after that. Any food that goes in there, man, they go for it. And they're not shy about it. they'll fight that self-in tank for food. So see the Leniatus here too. See, I think the Moorish Idols, trying to think when they came in now. I don't think it's not been a week yet, so. But the Selfin, or the Desjardini's been in here, I guess about 3 weeks. I looked at my whiteboard, which I write down. I keep track of every fish that goes into quarantine, when they arrived, when they went in, how long they've been in, of course. So I think he's been in about 3 weeks, and he's still pretty skittish. It's not as bad as he was, but I think the red coarse wrasse has probably been in here the longest, and he's been in here probably a month already. So, but the Moorish Idols are looking pretty good. I mean, you know, they're eating and kind of swimming around, not, you know, hiding in a corner or anything like that. And, they're not, I mean, they still swim with one another, but they're not as you know, obviously when they first went in, they felt more comfortable being right around one another, but they're kind of going out and venturing on their own. when they get into the display tank that they're going to go into, it's going to be in a 125. Most likely they'll, well, I suspect they'll probably swim a little bit more together, especially when they first go in. So they'll probably go in together. I'm pretty sure I'll put them in at the same time. And let them establish their territory before the Desjardins will be in the 125 as well. The Lineatus will be in the 210. He's going in the 210. Their red chorus is going in the 125. Let's see. The 4-line will probably be going in the 125. The Blue Dot will probably be in the 125, and the Sleeper Goat will probably be in the 125. So. But so far they're doing pretty good. I did a 5-gallon water change today, and I had one of the other guys ask me on one of the forums, how often do I do water changes in my quarantines. I really don't do it that often. I mean, this is a tank that stays up and running all the time, so it's not like it's not like a tank that you set up just for a fish coming in that hasn't had an opportunity for nitrifying bacteria to grow. So there's a little bit of there is some some rock rubble and such that's in the side refugium over here that nitrifying bacteria can actually grow on and live as well. So, but typically fish aren't in here a long time either. I mean, sometimes this is fallow, so sometimes this tank is nothing in it. Even though there's nothing in it, I keep it running. I don't keep the temperature where it's at now. I mean, I'll let it go down a little bit, but I do keep it running, and that way, whenever I get something in, it's ready to go. I'm not, putting 40 gallons and 10 gallons and whatever the total water volume for all these would be every single time. It's just, I mean, it's probably a little more expensive to keep. I mean, I'm sure it is a little more expensive to keep running all the time than if I was to just, potentially. Obviously, I wouldn't dump the water. I mean, a lot of quarantine details and instructions and such will tell you to, whenever you bring in a new specimen, to, dump the water and bleach the tank or whatever, etc. Obviously that's expensive, but I also don't find that necessary. I mean, especially if you're in this instance where we're constantly running cupramine, I'm constantly running Prosi Pro as well. I can pretty much say that everything gets treated with Prosi Pro as well, not just cupramine's always running through the system. So it's not likely for anything to live from one fish to the next if they spend the adequate amount of time in the tank. So, but I think those suggestions really usually are for more so for tanks that are maybe like a 10 gallon or something like that. You set up temporarily and then you break it down for the next fish or whatever to come in. But it doesn't really make any sense to do it on a quarantine system that runs all the time. I mean, that just it's just not reasonable to do, because this system here is probably somewhere around maybe 52-ish gallons of water, and between the RO water that's produced over here, which is currently running right now, because I did about a 30-gallon water change on the 125 today. Between the RO and then the salt, which I use reef crystals. I even use actually reef crystals in the quarantine, even though it doesn't really make any sense. But I mean, I just buy a box, 200-gallon box of reef crystals, and I mean it's the standard. It in the bucket. I get them in the boxes, and then of course I'll just put it into the to the bucket there. But anyway, so I mean, I even run the reef crystals in the quarantine, but it's only like a couple of dollars difference for the same amount of salt. So per box. So it's really not that big of a deal. So, but anyway, everything in here is doing well. Haven't had any issues. I mean, obviously they've got they've tighter space than what they normally like to have, but this is just temporarily while they're in quarantine. This is definitely way better than just putting them right into a display tank. As I mentioned before in previous quarantine videos, it's not just for disease treatment and parasite treatment, but it's also a great way for them to acclimate, to wash them very closely. Most likely not be hassled by other fish, because usually other fish that are in here aren't, if they are in here before they've come in, they're not in here very long time, so they're not really established, and so it's not a lot of not a whole lot of hassle if a fish is in here before time. Obviously I've said this before, but the Moorish Idols and the Desjardini don't like one another. So, but it's nothing that, especially if there's two Moorish Idols, and there's nothing that the Desjardini is going to do to stress them out to cause any health concern. So, but anyway, like I said, I mean they don't really get established in here, So I mean, I really don't usually have other fish. It just depends on the scenario. So a lot of times they come in here, they're the only ones in here, but it gives them a great opportunity to get used to the aquarium. I can watch them a lot closer here than I can just swimming around in between rocks and etc. in a display tank. I also can treat them sooner here. I can see them closer if something is, if there's, if they've got some type of infection or something like that, I actually can see it better here. And not only that, I mean, the fact, I believe, that they see the food a lot better. This thing's bare bottom, obviously, so they're not dealing with rock and sand and and everything else that food could potentially fall into and see. But especially when they're in here by themselves, if it's something that's a very picky eater, they can see the food. And if they're the only one in here, then the food may sit on the bottom for a little while until they actually go and pick around and say, hey, this is actually food, this is good, and test it and taste it and say, next time I see this, I'm going to eat it again. So it's actually, especially you have picky eaters like the Moorish Idols. I haven't found them to be in this since they've been in quarantine, obviously. So, but the advantage I have is the fact that they're in quarantine, and they're in a smaller area, and also they're not dealing with a bunch of other stuff in a tank, and sand and rocks and everything else that can be missed. Hey, even if they were in a tank by themselves that was a standard display tank, you've got snails and you've got hermit crabs and that kind of stuff that will actually eat the food. Obviously, there's nothing in here that are inverts, because they wouldn't live as a result of the cupramine. The copper would kill them. So, but you can see, like this Moorish Idol here. You can see them picking and looking for food, and this is definitely a good sign to see in an aquarium, which is gives you good hopes that he's going to do well in a display tank. So they're probably going to be, right now I've got the 125 pretty much fallow. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, there's still anemones and such in there, but I need to end this video soon. But anyway, I'm kind of making a change where there's a bunch of designer clowns, etc. And so I'm kind of going a little bit different path. Got rid of the all of the clown pairs that I had and sold those. And so, but anyway, that's about it. They're doing pretty good.